What to do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. Lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. And remember, if it's a dark and stormy night and you need a drink to warm the depths of your hearts, we at the Brothers on Books go with Encha Matcha, the best matcha for the best brothers. And now our listeners will get 10% off when they use the link provided in the show notes. I'm Alex Alwile, and with me as always is my brother Jack Alwile. Jack, how you do?
I'm doing great, Al. It's another great night to discuss a book, and I got my matcha right here.
I was
How's
about to
everything
say,
going there?
I see the Encha. You're just rocking the Encha. So, Jack, what book are we doing?
We're doing Alan Watts' The Wisdom of Insecurity. This was the third philosophy book of the three philosophy books you selected in the last round of the book draft.
That it
So,
is.
Al, what drew you to this book?
Just a quick side note, the subtitle of this book is A Message for an Age of Anxiety. Uh, this book was written in the 50s. So man, imagine what he would think now. I feel like the anxiety levels in today's society are just like out of control, probably compared to what they were 70 years ago.
That's a good point, because if you would have told me this book was written like recently, I would have believed it.
Yeah, same. But yeah, he died. Alan Watts died in like the 70s.
Hmm.
Uh, So I mean, for those of us that don't know, and I will get to your question. Alan Watts was he was theologian. He was a British American writer speaker. He called himself a philosophical entertainer, and for the most part, he became famous for popularizing essentially Buddhist, Taoist, and Hindu philosophy for Western audiences. It's sort of weird. What kind of drew me to this book is, yeah, I was looking for philosophy books. I had an ex-girlfriend that was really into Alan Watts. I had listened to some of his lectures online before. Uh, I don't necessarily feel like I really, because I would listen to these things when I was at work. So I don't know if I was necessarily really absorbing what was being said, but it always sounded, the way he speaks always sounds super soothing. So I always just liked listening, having it on in the background. And then I saw this book and, I figured it sounded interesting, so I figured I'd give it a go.
Okay.
Uh, Also, like probably something that we'll touch on for sure in this book is something that was said to me that he kind of touches on in this book, which is you can't chase happiness. Like you can't, I guess I would like frame it as you can't like buy the end goal of your purpose cannot be just, quote unquote happiness. And I feel like we kind of talked about that in A Man's Search for Meaning, of how it doesn't, if your goal is just happiness, it doesn't really ever go anywhere except it just doesn't end well.
Hmm.
Um, I guess we'll sort of I think we'll kind of talk on that in like the first point of discussion that I had. So book kind of more or less opens up. The main part was on, like I said, this book was written in the 50s. Uh, but the first chapter or so is focused on, religion uh, is I feel like at least the Western world has become more industrialized. I feel like people have turned towards science a lot more as just like a belief system. So I feel like, and he touches on this, that people are turning away from religion. And he's saying this in the 50s. I feel like this is super true now. If you were to even, I live in Alabama, even here, I see a lot of people that are not necessarily like atheists, but like maybe more or less agnostic. But they're definitely turning away. I, I feel like people are turning away from organized religion and maybe becoming more spiritual. And the reason this becomes an issue is that uh, I feel like I very clearly see the dichotomy is that people that I find tend to be very religious tend to, at least from my perspective, appear to live or appear to seem more fulfilled in their lives. They're more certain of an afterlife. It seems like they just have more purpose in their life. Where I feel like a lot of, at least me, like a lot of me personally, a lot of people that aren't necessarily super religious tend not to see as big of a purpose in their lives or maybe feel as much fulfillment. Uh, I guess I don't know your thoughts on that.
Um, I mean, I think going to like Doc G's book, The Purpose Code, I think it's just in general, it's good when you have like a purpose. And I think a lot of people that are religious, they've kind of brought on that as the purpose. So I think it kind of embeds a purpose for them, maybe. But I
Yes,
would agree. Um, and I also thought in the first part it was very important because like you even mentioned belief. So he made the distinction between belief and faith. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me from that whole first section because belief is kind of like you're trying to find things that already support your, I think he just called it
belief.
like a leaf, um, or how you wish it to be. But like faith is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. So it's like you're open to the unknown and exploring all ideas. So I thought that was an important distinction. Um, because I think I probably would have used those two interchangeably um,
Well,
before.
I would define faith. I would define faith as well, I would use the word belief to define faith. I would define faith as a belief in something that has no empirical evidence.
Okay.
Like if you have like faith, or maybe that's not the greatest definition, but like
But
a,
but
a,
you also like I guess you could like are you saying like the existence of like a creator or God or
yes, there's
um
no you're never. He even says it. I think it's maybe in the preface by Chopra, or that he claims that there will never be evidence for a God. And I would kind of agree with
but you
that.
could go
Like,
the other way too and say there's no evidence there's not too.
correct, yes. I mean, you would never be able to, you can't possibly disprove a creator. You can only prove that a
Right.
creator doesn't need to exist.
How could you prove that?
You could at some point, you think, take logically, you could show how life could evolve without the necessity for a creator. But that doesn't then mean that a creator doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
Do you see what I'm
Because I don't
saying?
know, after we read Darwin's Black Box, I kind of thought like I don't know. I'm like I'm a little bit more like even if you believe in like that, like the Big Bang theory, like
Okay.
and that still started out with some matter at some point, right?
Yeah, so that's
So
actually
so that that
that's
that
the
that
question I struggle with a lot of
yeah, that,
times.
that
It's
that's why
like,
I feel like there's got to be something like that. That's what makes me and I when I think about it too much. I mean, I know we talked about like the Matrix and like how do you know what's real and those types of rabbit holes are what get me thinking like yeah, there's something like bigger.
yeah, I mean, I struggle with that when I get into these like theological like debates. Like that's the question I always bring up. Like, where does energy come from? Like one of the tenets of chemistry and physics is like energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred through. Sorry, matter cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred through different forms of energy. But like, where does the matter come from? Like, you and I exist. We're here. We're made of matter.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Like where does it all come from? The Big Bang isn't the creation of matter. It's saying all the matter. It's been a while since I looked at this, but it's like
Isn't it?
saying
Isn't it
all.
that all matter originated from some matter?
No, it's all the matter in the universe coalesced into like a single point and then exploded outward. Let me
Right. That's
hold on.
yeah, yeah,
But that's not
yeah.
saying the matter was created. It's just saying all the
Right.
matter
No,
there.
no. I'm with you. Where did that
Right.
matter come from? That. Yeah, I'm with you.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like, I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people would argue for like maybe like cyclical, like the,
Would you say more people have belief or faith? Beliefs or like a greater like faith?
uh, in terms of religion.
No, just it could be anything. Being the
Oh, I think most, uh, I would say beliefs.
yeah, I would say it's strongly more people have beliefs where they try to fit new things that they're seeing into their current ones instead of being because he's kind of throughout the book he's kind of talking about having like no memory, like you can't be thinking about the past, you need to be seeing the world in a new light, like as it's like a new photos every
As it
single
unfolds. Yeah.
um so I think most people are not unreservedly open to the truth.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, there was a point in my life when I was talking to, uh, well, I have a distinct memory, like sort of going back to the religion thing, where someone that was very religious asked me, like, how do you find purpose in your life? And I like couldn't. It's essentially the answer is like doing the things that I enjoy to do. Uh, like strive, essentially, like purpose is like striving to be better in like what I'm doing. But like their answer was like, I find purpose in, knowing that Jesus Christ loves me and that they're directing me on my path. And it's like directing me to essentially like, I'm blanking, like an eternal like life of like bliss.
Okay.
So
That's
it's like, I feel like a lot of times, uh super like science-based people a lot of times struggle like feeling purpose in their lives because it's not like baked in. I mean, like religion gives you.
mm-hmm. Um,
All I'm saying is like, in my own life, like I'm not trying to make any like grand, statements about everyone. I find that people that are very, at least the Christians that I've interacted with, that are very religious, tend to at least outwardly appear more fulfilled and seem happier than like the atheists.
I
And
mean,
I think
very
it's
possible.
because, yeah, this is just yet again from my own observations in the world. I think it's because that they have that baked in like faith of an afterlife. I think that plays a big part in it.
Um, yeah, I mean, that could. I wonder how much of it is just feeling like you're part of the community. Because, like, if you're an atheist, it's not like that. Well, at least there are. I mean, maybe there are atheist groups that like meet up, but I feel like people really normally don't rally around the absence of something. They rally around the presence of something, kind of like a sports team. It's not like if I
Sure.
don't like Chelsea Football Club, it's not like I'm going to form a group that's anti Chelsea Football Club. It's more like I'm going to go support Arsenal Football Club. And some people use sports as their like religion. It's like a built-in community.
Sure,
And
that's yeah, that's absolutely possible.
I wonder how much of it is just feeling part of something.
I mean, when
Matt
I
Wood,
moved, sorry,
oh God.
I was just gonna say when I moved here, a lot of the first question I got from the vast majority of people I met was like, what church are you planning on going to? And when
Mhm,
I told them like none, it's like, well, how are you gonna have a social life? Like, how are you gonna interact? Like,
mhm,
church is so ingrained into the social aspects of life down here.
mhm,
That is a possibility. But sort of the second part that I wanted to touch on from this like sort of this like this part of the discussion was, so a loss of religion has kind of led to this unfulfillment of life, at least by what Alan Watts is saying, which has kind of led to consumerism and the issues associated with consumerism. So he makes a lot of, and this is actually what I really remembered from reading about or listening to Alan Watts was the way I kind of like ration or phrase it in my head is like you cannot chase happiness or you cannot like really buy your way into happiness. Like happiness is essentially an internal thing. You have to kind of like you can't be happy all the time. It's like unrealistic. But happiness is like a fleeting moment, and if you use like money to chase it, it will lead to an empty life. And I used to do this. I distinctly remember essentially the girl that sort of got me onto Alan Watts. Like she's like, "Well, what do you want in life?" And I just remember saying, "I will be happy when I'm done with grad school." And she's like, "Well, why will you be happy when you're done with grad school?" And my statement was like, well, I won't have to do this, like, I won't have to work so much and I'll make more money and all these things. But, it's one of those weird things. Like, grad school happened and then I didn't have to work so much and I made more money, but like my like normal demeanor did not change. Like, it was nice for like a couple months and then I just kind of went back to the same feeling. And obviously at the time I had no way of knowing that, but she did tell me like that's not a good goal to have because like once you reach it, like you then just set your sights on something else. And he kind of talks about consumerism. It's like, if you're feeling, you just go and buy something and you get I think in today's terms, we talk about it as like dopamine hits. Like you get some dopamine hit from like watching some video or watching a reel, and you kind of get that little like snap where you feel happy. And then you become like almost what's the word? You adapt to it, and then you need like a bigger hit. So like the next time you need to buy something bigger or something fancier, and it's just constantly chasing the next hit almost, and you never truly find. You're not really going to ever find what you're looking for.
mhm. Yeah, I think it goes to the point he's kind of saying like to experience a lot of pleasure, you have to be willing to cope with pain. It's like a yin yang thing. And he had a good line like about striving for pleasure without pain is to strive for a loss of consciousness. And yeah, basically, when you keep wanting that dopamine hit, you're trying to remove yourself from feeling pain, I would say almost like you want the pleasure, but it's kind of like an alcoholic that just wants to not feel what they're feeling and they drink and just to numb the pain and they don't want to think about anything else. They just want the pain to go away and they're looking to avoid pain. Um,
Yeah, so drinking was like the reverse of like buying something to make yourself feel good. It's like I think the example he uses, you feel depressed, so you go and get drunk and you take away the depression while you're drunk, But then when you wake up, you haven't addressed like why do you feel sad? Like why are you depressed? And
Hmm.
then over the course of time, you have to continue to drink more to get drunk. And
Hmm.
then and then you're pissed because you're originally, but you don't want to be drunk. Like no one wants to be drunk or hungover. But now you're not only one, not addressing why you were originally sad, but now you're like starting to hate yourself because you're an alcoholic and you're hungover all the time and you're probably not physically feeling great. And it's like a downward spiral where you have to then continue to drink more to get to the same original spot of the original, like what you originally had to get rid of your original feeling of depression.
Hmm. Yeah, there's like so many like cliches I like was thinking about while reading this. Like there's the Stubborn Love song by the Lumineers, it's better to feel pain than nothing at all. Kind of getting to the sense that like at least if you're feeling pain, at least like you're alive and like able to like turn it around kind of. And then when you were talking about the money, I know so many people that like go after the money for the money, and he had a couple good lines. I might butcher them, but they're like it was like um, the people who focus on the money are failing to live because they're always preparing to live.
Yeah, that was a good one.
They're like when you're striving for money and you think, oh, it'll be good if I get an extra $1 million or if I have an extra $10 million, and then it's always like the number's always going up. Um, and it's like they're always focused on the future. And then he also made a good point on the money is that the money is not really what you're after. Money is kind of like a symbol. It's just a symbol of real wealth. It's not really, and he had a good line also like they're confusing like the measurement, like money is a measurement with like reality. Like you want the stuff money can buy and you want like things you can consume with the money. So like he was describing like you can have all the gold, you know, in the world, but if like your farm, if your crops, if you're on, if you have like one plot of land, if it's not growing food, like you're gonna starve. Like doesn't really matter. Um, so I think it's about kind of identifying. Yeah, it's not going after the measurement. You want to be living in reality and thinking about what the money, I guess, represents to you. And then also thinking, and then I also thought a lot about, he's talking a lot about like not to think in the past or the future. And I heard Mark Moss had a great line a couple of videos ago. Mark Moss is like a tech Bitcoiner for those who haven't heard of him, and he was talking about people that think a lot in the future, and that even when you tell someone like "I'll see you tomorrow," like you're kind of lying. Like you don't know for sure you're gonna like see someone, or so if you're gonna be lying anyway to yourself about the future because you don't have a crystal ball, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You might as well, and this is to the point that your mind is so powerful, you might as well lie to yourself about the future, and that you might as well lie optimistically about yourself in the future. You might as well say things like, yeah, I'm going to be like super healthy, like in a little bit if you're feeling pain, like in a joint or something, or I'm going to be filthy wealthy and be able to buy all this stuff or live off grid if I want or well whatever you want but you can lie to yourself because you're lying to yourself anyway. Most people don't like admit that I get or maybe they don't call it lying, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
I mean, that's sort of like the hallmark of the positive affirmations, and I'm blanking on the book. The what's the Carnegie or what's the not the Carnegie book? The
Oh,
Napoleon Hill, Think and
Napoleon
Grow
Hill.
Rich. Yeah, Think and
Yeah.
Grow Rich. When he says essentially, and I did this for a while, is you essentially just say these affirmations to yourself, and you start to believe them,
Hmm.
and it does help. Like you associate yourself with like living a better life, and then you start to kind of become the person you think you are. Uh,
Hmm.
kind of. So there were a lot of things. One of the other good quotes he had about the money was something along the lines of like someone that lives to earn a paycheck like fails to live a life,
Hmm.
which I thought was a good one.
That was a good one.
Uh,
Yeah, there's that quote like, are you working to live or living to work?
right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like kind of sort of what you were saying, like money at the end of the day, money is its true form, money is a medium of exchange, right? Like it's something that facilitates people bartering. So they don't
Hmm.
have to like you don't have to like bring a cow to to a market and get like corn for it or something. It
Hmm.
makes it easier to barter. Um, but yeah, like so, and I think in the book he talks about people that are so focused on money, like after they retire, a lot of times they don't have other hobbies and they kind of default back to just working. Like
Hmm.
they just can't live. They can't do something just for pleasure. Like you can't, and I feel like I hear this a lot. Like, well, if I were to retire, like what would I do? It's like, well, I mean, what have you spent? I mean, your life just shouldn't be just working a job for, by the time you're done with school, like 50 years. Like you should, right? You should I think a healthy lifestyle would cultivate multiple hobbies that you could go and do. It's just at least my own personal belief.
Hmm.
Sort of back, yeah, to the pain and pleasure. Like he views pain and pleasure as like a spectrum where like pain's at one side and pleasure's at the other. So it's like impossible. Also, like just knowing the comparison, like I used to think this a lot too. Like you can't, you really can't know if there's no like alternative feeling, you can't possibly know what the feeling is. So like you can't by knowing what sadness is and like by having like deep moments of sadness, when you feel happiness, it makes it so much more important, right? Like you see a lot of times people that come from like really like destitute beginnings being the ones that work the hardest to achieve because they know what it's like to feel hardship. Um, I mean, there was an old, I don't even remember where I heard this, like there can be no joy without sorrow, and there can be like no achievement without adversity, kind of something I used to say to myself a real lot. Uh, yeah, so kind of moving on to, I mean, you talked about living in the present, just past. That was like one of the last things I had written down in terms of this book. Uh, So when I was first reading or when I was going through this, and he's talking about living in the present and essentially not focusing, not focusing so much on the future. Uh, I mean, initially, my first thought is kind of like, well, if I'm not going to think about the future, like, I mean, like, what stops someone from living kind of like a hedonistic lifestyle?
Nothing. I mean, some people do that. You,
Right,
you
but like
just you just mean like in abundance, like doing like whatever they feel
yeah,
like.
you just want to be like a total pleasure seeker. It's like I'm gonna go do drugs. I'm gonna just go and try and have, sex with anyone I can. Just be drunk all the time. I'm just gonna like live to, do exactly what I want to do whenever. Like what? Because you wouldn't say that's what he was advocating for.
Um, no, I would not say that's what he was advocating for.
Right,
I think
same.
he
I
was
agree.
um, more so. I would have just described it as not trying to analyze how you're feeling. Just stop trying to use so many words to describe how you're feeling. Just feel it,
Right, just live.
I
Just
guess is how I would.
be in the moment.
Because he was also describing how, we've developed language and we've developed our minds to almost replace a lot of the other senses, I guess. And I've heard this like from us reading, some of our other senses have gone down. Like we used to be able to hear more in nature, or I think there are some tribes where the people have better like sense of direction, and also because there's no like writing to pass down stories, you have to memorize like spoken word. So like in some ways, like other things come and go, I guess, based on your environment and how the language is constructed. Um, but he was saying a lot of well, what am I trying to say? Like here it says most of wisdom which we employ never came to us as verbal info. So I think some of like living in the moment is about not really like trying to analyze and like say like, oh, I'm like happy right now. Just like feel like uh, yeah, I don't know how else to say it, but like just feel the moment. Like
I,
stop trying to analyze how you're feeling.
yeah, I think the example he uses was something along the lines of if you're at a party and you're having a really good time, you shouldn't stop to say, I'm really having a good time because it takes you out of the moment. You should just stay in the moment and continue to enjoy what you're doing.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's because when I was, I feel like that is a better interpretation of like what I feel like what he wants people to do, not to just go live, to just go live for pleasure, I would say,
Hmm.
than a sort of a hedonistic lifestyle. Uh,
Yeah.
Even though when I was going through it, I was like, man, like that would be, I feel like that would kind of be, an like, I think that's just how some people could take it. Like if you're just telling them to not focus on the future and like only focus on the present. But I think at one point he makes a point that uh like thinking about the future we've not evolved is not the right word, but like we're our intellect, like in us developing our intellect, it has caused us these other problems of anxiety of like thinking about the future and about the past. Because when he's comparing us to animals, he's like, animals don't think about the future. Like they're not worried about what they're gonna do for retirement. They just are. They just feel. They just do. Like when a cow's hungry, it just eats some grass. And then when its stomach says it's not hungry anymore, it stops.
Yep.
And he's making these like weird comparisons that like humans like eat with their head. Like they just eat and keep eating, especially I feel like now, instead of like listening to their body of
Hmm.
when does you need to eat,
Yeah, and
more
he
or
also
less.
on those same lines he brought up like the idea of a clock and time and how humans invented time so they could, meet up with their friends or so the church service could start on time. But if you really listened to your body and woke up, well, when the sun gets up and eat accordingly when you're hungry, it would maybe be better for you.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, listening to your body was one of the last notes I had written down.
Hmm.
I don't know. Well, did you have any other main
Well, what
takeaways?
did you think of I thought his language around security was pretty great. this idea of people wanting security, but it is in conflict with the fact that change is constant. Um, and he had a good line about like the desire for security and feeling of insecurity are the same thing. Um,
Yeah, so
and I feel like women, I might get in trouble, but like women in general, I feel like they talk about like being secure more. And I always wonder about this because like I feel like a lot of times they want like guarantees that like are just not possible. Like there are no guarantees, and I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on like living in an uncertain world?
yeah, so the last thing I have written down in my notes is security is impossible. Uh,
Hmm.
it's sort of I guess I would just liken it. I feel like I was just talking about this with someone. Like people, this is kind of a tangent, but like people will talk about like wanting a secure job, like wanting, but there's no such thing as a secure job. Sort of to like what you were saying, but like that's what people and I mean it's kind of like a little off topic, but I feel like the things people strive for when they say they want a secure job is in some regards the most insecure. Um,
Hmm.
but for like different reasons. But yeah, I agree. But yes, it is a I think a paradox of like wanting to strive for that. And I feel like in some regards he's saying that wanting something that is like quote unquote secure makes people anxious. Like the exact thing that they're trying to avoid
Yep.
is anxiety. Like they don't want anxiety, but like striving to get something that is impossible causes you to be anxious.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's like total
I think
cognitive gymnastics in the sense you're striving, your goal is something that's constant, but literally the only constant is change.
change. I
and
think I think he
that's like,
I think he calls it like living in contradictions in the book,
yeah,
but that's like
I
what
uh
no, no, go on.
no, I was just gonna say like, and then he went to the like the end of one's life when they're going through the death process, and he's talking about how death is like the epitome of the truth that in the moment we are going into the unknown, like you don't know what it's like, but he's kind of talking about like death is literally the secret to life in the sense like um you have to kind of abandon like wanting security, and like the unknown cannot be avoided, like death, like just like
Yes.
death cannot be avoided. um and I think he said something like when you understand like this about death, like you start living for the first time. And there's a quote, it might have been a man search for me, but I don't remember. But it's like a man lives two lives, the second one starts when he realizes he only has one. And I think that was the quote I was thinking of when he brought up this death component. Because I think once people, well, when it really sets in that you only have one life, most people would operate a little differently than they are.
Yeah, like make the most of what you have. Like
Hmm.
you gotta yeah, you got one. I mean, I actually I feel like when we interviewed Iran, I feel like he said that really well. Or maybe I just heard him say it. It's like you get one life, you have one shot, you gotta do what is like best for you. You gotta go out and like do what you think is best and go for it. Like essentially just go for it. Like you shouldn't uh I think he also talks about people like searching for this safe and secure job and it being against what they really want, like in the search for security. and it's like against their like true calling of what they want. I think he uses the example of like someone going to law school when in reality they wanted to be like a nurse or a social worker and help people. And it's like it's counterproductive to what you're truly searching for.
Mhm. Yeah. Were you saying Iran said that or
I think I've heard Euron say you only have one life. You need to go out and make the most of it and go and live where you're treated best. Something, I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
uh,
Uh, I don't know if
I
he said
remember
it.
him saying that when we asked him about why he left Israel.
Okay, yeah. So he did say it when we interviewed
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I thought this was the best philosophy book you picked. I thought it
Definitely,
was
definitely the easiest to get through.
easiest to get through. I don't know if that had to do with so the one book you had was Nietzsche. What was the other one you picked? I forget.
The Bertrand Russell Problems of
So
Philosophy.
yeah. I mean the Nietzsche one, it might have been like perhaps the translation added another layer of difficulty, but I thought this book was more applicable and helped me think through some things because I do sometimes dwell on I guess the part that really stuck out to me was like avoiding pain, I guess, because like I do have a lot of aches and I sometimes like, oh, if I could just like fix this thing or like and he's kind of saying like almost like almost just like accept like pain comes and goes and tr I know obviously it's like hard in theory to do like but just like try not to think about it and kind of just let it come and go um and I guess that part is because I'm perhaps living somewhat in the future when I think like okay some of these things will go away I don't know I probably have to like think on it some more but that's kind of what was I was that part spoke to me and because he's kind of talking about um like and he brought up like judo which is like the like mastering opposing forces by like just giving in so that part kind of stuck out to me in this book.
Or I think more aptly, like you should like maybe like focus on what is causing the pain and like how you can, strive to alleviate it instead of, you know, just recognizing that at some point it will maybe go away.
Mhm. Yeah, I
I
mean
mean, from
some things have just some pain does just go away. And
sure,
it's kind of I mean
absolutely.
some of the stuff he says it is kind of like if you if you kind of like stop thinking about it, it kind of just dwindles down. And it's kind of interesting, like when you have some sort of pain, like the pain you were feeling before sometimes goes away. And I found that very interesting
Yeah.
in my life, at least. Um, but, but yeah, like just kind of taking the senses in and understanding it's trying to tell you something and yeah, because he said like don't like fight the pain, but yeah, try to understand it and um but yeah, I thought that was a good food for thought.
Yeah, I think my main takeaway is still like you can't chase happiness. Uh
Mhm.
and yeah, and then I mean the other one would be like you have to be comfortable with, with not being you have to be comfortable with insecurity, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So anything else out of there?
Yeah, it was, I guess, like you said, I think it was my best philosophy pick in this batch. Easiest to get through. It was only like 150 pages.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, it was written about 70 years ago, and it feels almost more applicable today than I think it probably would have in the 50s,
Mhm.
which I guess is the sign of a good, probably the sign of a good book.
Evergreen content.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I'm Jack Alwell, and with me, as always, is my brother Alex Alwell. Al, I think we are through another cycle of books.
Yeah, we
And
are.
that means our next outing is going to be another book draft.
That's right. So
So
have we decided we're each picking a section again and then picking three books? Is that what we're
yep,
doing? That's what we're
I
doing.
hope so because I already picked out three.
Okay, there we go. I will have to pick out
So,
mine.
okay, until next time.
Until next time.